Alright everyone, welcome to this particular episode of Juicy Bits, where I'm going to go over some of the system mechanics in KOF13. Not all of it, I just want to cover some of the visual things, like the meters and the bars and the timer and things like that. Also, I want to cover stuns, just because stuns are not something that you can easily see. But with that said, it's really simple. Well, honestly, it's not terribly simple, but the life bar itself, every single character in the game has 1,000 life. 1,000. Also, you'll notice that the life bar is cut into 10 neat little boxes. Every single box is 100 life, so it's easy for you to look at their life bar and see about how much life they have. Next to the life bar is the timer. Now, because I'm in training mode, it's set to infinite. But a timer in a regular match, at least for the tournament settings, would be 60. However, the timer is not actually 60 seconds. If you watch the timer closely, you'll notice that the timer goes down once every second and a half or so, and a round lasts actually 90 real-time seconds. Okay, so it's, even though the number says 60, it goes down slower than every second, and a round lasts about 90 seconds. Okay. Now, also you'll see the guard gauge. The guard gauge is that little blue gauge underneath Iori's life bar here. Every character's have it. When you actually attack your opponent, it goes down if they block, obviously. When they're not guarding, it rises back up. Okay? And when it gets very low, it starts blinking red. This doesn't really affect the game at all, but if you do get them all the way down, you get a guard crash, and basically for just a brief moment, they have no more guard meter. You can actually set the guard gauge in the training mode here. I can set it down to nothing. Okay. Now, you only have a certain amount of time to actually get the guard break, okay? If you back up for a second, and then you try to attack, you might be too late. Let's just set the number a little higher just to show you here. Let's say it's at 10% here. Let's say I go for a jump CD but then back up. Well, guess what? You were too late, you know? Like, you have to make sure that if you do get the guard gauge, that you're close enough that you can actually take advantage of it. Another thing to keep in mind is, you'll want to know, like, if you're in the middle of a string, what if you guard break on the second hit? If you don't know that you're going to guard break on the second hit, then you might drop that combo. So it's a good idea to keep an eye on their guard gauge if they're near breaking, and be very careful with your strings, so that you can pick the right string that'll give you the right amount of meter, excuse me, the right amount of opportunity. You can go ahead and finish that combo. Guard gauges. Alright. Now, I should also make a mention of not every character's guard gauge is the exact same length. Most of them are, okay? Almost every character in the game, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's 36 characters in this game. For 32 of them, their guard is broken when they block 9 of Kyo's jumping CD. Okay. However, for Clark and Rolf, it breaks at 11, and for Maxima and Daimon, it breaks at 14. They have a little bit more guard gauge than other characters. That's just something to keep in mind. Another thing, now this one is not actually listed unless you're in training mode. Do you see right where Kyo is? You see that 120? Total stun. Alright, now, stun you can also set in training mode, but basically as you attack your opponent, if it hits them, you see that total stun number? 99, 92. It's slowly going down. If you keep hitting them, it keeps going down. If you leave them alone for a little bit, it starts to slowly rise back up. So you can see this in training mode to try to see how it'll work. However, if you actually hit them, it'll just start to go down. It'll stay there for a little bit. And then, if they start to guard, let's set these guys to guard now. Notice that the stun is 92, but it stays there. Okay? But then it goes back up again. So, unlike in some other fighting games, keeping them in guard stun does not keep their stun number. You have to keep hitting them, otherwise their stun number will rise. Okay? And that's why stuns are kind of rare in KOF, because you really need to kick their ass to get a stun. Let's see. Now, as far as that's the life bar, that's the guard gauge, that's the timer, that's stuns, that's pretty much it. Well, let's just show you what a stun looks like. If you actually hit them, it might look familiar. They're stunned, they're dizzied, whatever you want to call it, and you can just run up and get a free combo. So you get whatever you want. Now, another thing to keep in mind, though, is that your opponent can mash out of the stun. So if you get stunned for whatever reason, go ahead and mash buttons, because after a certain number of inputs, you can break free of the stun, so feel free to mash out. Alright, so let's see here. Stuns, guard gauge. Okay, so the last section here, I want to go ahead and get rid of the display for this one, is notice on the bottom of the screen, next to where the characters are standing, this is your meter, right? There are two distinct meters. The one that's slowly filling up with the yellow, that is your power meter, I believe the official name of it is. But once it is filled all the way, take a close gander at Iori's meter after he gets guard crashed and stunned. No stun. Look at Iori's meter. Notice that there's a 0 on the bottom right corner, and once it fills all the way, now it says it's a 1. Okay, so this yellow bar, when it fills all the way, you get 1 stock. And it can fill all the way up to a certain amount. When you're playing in a match, you have 3 characters. Person 1, Person 2, Person 3. Your first character can have a maximum of 3 stocks. Your second character can have a maximum of 4 stocks. And your last character can have a maximum of 5 stocks. Okay? So keep in mind that the first, second, and third characters have different amounts of maximum meter. We like to call them stocks. As they fill up, you get additional stocks. Okay? And you'll also notice there's that other meter. That's the one that's that pale green. It's on the it's slightly above the yellow meter. Now the green meter doesn't have stocks, but the green meter is called drive meter. And I'm going to go over drive meter just a little bit more after I talk a little bit more about stocks, okay? Now, when it comes to stocks, how do you use them, okay? If you look at your special move list, okay, you'll notice that some of your special moves, and in Kyo's case, all of them, have a little blue symbol next to the final notation. For his first move, that's forward, down, forward, either punch, and then there's a little blue symbol, okay? What that little blue symbol means is that if you press both punches instead of just one punch, here's the light version, here's the hard version, if you press both punches instead, you can use one of your stocks to make it an EX move. It's called an EX special move, okay? And, let's see, so he's got some other special moves, quarter kick, quarter both kicks. There's that little blue flash, just so you know. That blue flash lets you know that it's an EX move, and that it's powered up, and that you spent the stock. And basically, you just hit 2 punches or 2 kicks for whatever the special move is. Okay? In addition to EX specials, another thing you can spend meter on is your supers. Okay? So, quarterback half forward for Kyo is the super move here. You can't use this unless you have a stock. You have to have a stock. But you might notice that, you might notice that even some supers have that little blue symbol for EX, and that means that if you press 2 punches or 2 kicks on that super, you get a better version of the super. So special moves can be free, or you can spend a bar on some of them. Super moves might cost 1, and for some of them you can cost 2. Every character has at least 1 special move that they can make EX. Excuse me, at least 1 super they can make EX. And for most characters have a couple of specials that they can make EX. Let's see, EX specials, supers, EX supers. Another thing you can do with stocks is you can do what's called a guard cancel. Okay? While you are blocking, while you are in guard stun, the moment you block something, you can input an evasive roll, which is light punch and light kick, or you can input a blowback attack, which is hard punch and hard kick, otherwise known as CD. Okay? Now, notice Kyo's stocks here. Notice that I have to spend a stock to do a guard cancel. Guard cancel rolling and guard cancel blowbacks have their own advantages, but I'll go over that at some other time. Right now you just need to know it costs a meter to do so. Okay? Now obviously that's meter. Now how do you build stocks of meter? Well, there's 3 ways to build meter in KOF13. Okay? The first way is to whiff a special move. Some of your special moves, if you do them, you'll build stock. Notice the little yellow gauge is filling. Okay? This is not true for every special move, okay? This one builds it, this one builds it, looks like, okay, but the fireball does not, okay? Notice that when you throw Kyo's fireball, it doesn't build any meter, okay? It doesn't build any meter if it doesn't touch anything. However, if Iori blocks it, then you build the meter, okay? So, as I said, the first way to build meter is to just simply do special moves, okay? When you do special moves, you build a little bit of meter if you whiff them, but then you'll build additional meter if they make contact. And there's two other ways of building meter. They're really simple. The first way is hit your opponent, and the second way is make them block something. If you make contact with your opponent in any way, if you put them in any amount of guard stun, or if you hit them, either way, then you will build meter. It's also worth noting that throws build no meter for either person. Okay? Throws build no meter whatsoever. Okay? That's pretty much how you build meter. It's also interesting to note the differential between the meter building, okay? If your opponent is blocking, they're actually building. I don't have exact math for this, but I think there are some tables. I think Cafe Ed figured out the exactness of this. But if your opponent is blocking your attacks, they build 140% of the stocks that you are building, okay? More specifically, they're building it on a 1.4 to 1 ratio, or at least, you know, it's around that number. I don't know the exacts, but you'll notice that Iori built a stock before I did right now, okay? However, if you are hitting your opponents, let's say there's no guard, they're actually still going to build more meter than you, but in this case it's not as much. They're building about 120% of the meter that you build. So we've got about let's see, he's built a stock and I barely built one, so, you know, it's not quite as big of a difference as when they're blocking your attacks, but you do build a little bit more meter when you do hit your opponent, okay? Now, there's one more meter I haven't discussed yet, and that is the drive meter. That's the green gauge at the bottom. You'll notice there's a little tick mark in the center, so that there's two halves of it. Now, what can drive meter do? Here's what drive meter does. With drive meter, you can cancel. Well, there's a couple things you can do with drive meter. First and foremost is you can cancel a special move into another special move. As an example. Okay? Here's an example you're probably going to use a lot with Kyo. You can do an uppercut, and then the moment that the uppercut connects, you can input his quarter forward kick. And if you have drive meter, notice my meter here. If you have drive meter and you did your input correctly, he'll stop doing that one special move and he'll go into the next one. And this can help you create combos. Which specials drive cancel into which specials, that's character specific. You'll want to experiment more with your character. But there are lots of options. You could do an uppercut into a fireball if you wanted. You could do an uppercut into his reverse DP kick. That's one you'll want to nail down if you want to be a really good Kyo player. I mean, there's plenty of things you can do. The running grab into the quarter forward kick and then combo into something else. And let's see here. So drive cancels lets you combo specials into specials, but you have to have drive meter available. If you go for this motion and you don't have any drive meter, you won't get the combo. You have to have the drive meter, okay? Now, there's one other thing that drive meter can do, and it's called a super cancel, okay? Okay. Drive cancels cost 50% of the gauge, but super cancels also cost 50% of the gauge. Let's see here. Let's get this right here. A super cancel if it sounds familiar for you, to you, that's because it is. Basically, you can cancel a special move. That was a drive cancel. You can cancel a special move into one of your supers, okay? This costs a drive meter as well. But it will also, of course, cost the stocks for the super. Okay, let's see. So you can go from a special to a different special. You can go from a special to a super. Now, if we backtrack a bit, there's another thing you can do with a drive cancel. You can actually drive cancel a special move into itself if you go into the EX version. Okay, you cannot drive cancel the light version of a special into the hard version of that same special. You have to go to a different one. However, you can go from one special to the EX version of the same one, okay? So that costs additional meter, but that is another thing that you can do with it. Okay. Another thing that you'll want to know about drive cancels is that they can actually not be done on block. If your opponent is blocking everything, you actually cannot do any drive cancels. However, you can do super cancels on block. Okay. Now there's only one more thing that drive meter can do, and this requires the full meter. Okay, and it's called hyperdrive mode. I'm not going to get too in-depth into it right now. I'm going to give hyperdrive mode its own video, but all you need to know for now is that it requires both stocks, both halves of the drive gauge. The hyperdrive gauge is, I believe, the official name. But I will devote hyperdrive mode, I will give it its own video, so remain patient for me, and you'll learn more about that when we get there. Now, that said, that's pretty much everything you need to know about the meters and everything else. There's only one last thing I forgot to mention. You do have one super at the bottom of your super list. It's called a Neomax super. In order to do a Neomax super, you have to spend 3 stocks and both drive gauges. Okay, so it's a very, very expensive special move. However, there is a way that you can actually make the Neomax move cheaper. If you do it while it's in HD mode, it only costs 2 stocks, and then the remainder of your drive gauge as it's counting down. But that's pretty much all you need to know about the meters, the gauges, the life. Just wanted to make a quick video to introduce you to the mechanics of KOF. I will of course be releasing more videos soon, so keep an eye out for those on my YouTube channel. See you guys later.